I'm Kassidy.
And I'm Kennedy.
And this is Threads of Wellth. One thing we both added into our routines lately is H2 Tab, the first company fully dedicated to molecular hydrogen tablets.
And it's so simple. You just drop a tablet in your water, it dissolves, and your water becomes infused with pure molecular hydrogen. And we've genuinely felt a difference.
I love taking that along with the Daily Essentials vitamin packet. It helps my body combat oxidative stress and supports natural energy without feeling jittery. The days that I have accidentally forgotten, I really notice a huge difference.
Yeah, I've also been using it after my workouts, after I teach Pilates, or even when I'm traveling. I notice better recovery and overall just better mental clarity. If you want an easy wellness habit that actually fits into your real life, check out drinkh2tab.com and use our code Threads of Wellth for 10% off. That's code Threads of Wellth. Wealth is WELLTH. Threads of Wellth for 10% off.
Today we're talking about perimenopause, something that so many women are struggling with, but very few are educated about. How to build better doctor-patient relationships and how to navigate healthcare outside of insurance. Welcome, Dr. Skattum. Welcome, Dr. Skattum, to Threads of Wellth. We're so excited to learn from you and hear about your background and just learn all of your expertise. Before we dive in, can you just tell us a little bit about your background and what led you really into women's health?
So I grew up always wanting to be a doctor ever since I was like around 4. And I always thought I was going to be a cardiovascular surgeon. And when I was in my first year of medical school, I went to Cameroon, West Africa for 6 weeks between my first and second year. And there was a lot of women's health that was very needed in that area. The HIV rate was around 50%. The first C-section I ever saw was in Africa, which was still the most horrific and awe-inspiring thing I've ever seen. And women would travel for, days to be able to get to a clinic. And in their society, your worth as a female was based on the number of children that you were able to bear. And with the STDs the way they are, it caused a lot of tubal scarring and infertility. And so these women would be cast out into the jungle, literally in the jungle, and told they were useless. And that was a very transformative experience for me. And it was at that point I was like, okay, we're gonna take care of women and really empower them in their health.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's amazing. So at that point, did you realize that you wanted to go beyond what traditional healthcare really offers to women, or did that kind of develop later in your career, or was really your time in West Africa when you just decided you wanted to focus on women and women's health and serving them?
I would say that it was just a pivot in health focus.
Okay.
Throughout medical school and residency and then my early career, I didn't really have a lot of exposure to anything other than traditional systems. I previously practiced in just north of Orlando and was in a single specialty private practice there. So there was 5 OB-GYNs and we were in a traditional insurance-based model. And through a decade of being there, it really kind of highlighted what the good as well as the limitations of those systems were.
Mm-hmm. So at what point did you realize in that setting, or maybe it was a later setting, that the conventional healthcare model wasn't working, or what made you shift to a different style of healthcare?
So the healthcare style that I have now is a direct patient care model. And I joke that it's kind of like just going back to the old school doc with the little black bag that has known you, for your whole life. So I'm that doc. I just wear 4-inch heels.
I love it.
And so I think that it's really, instead of leaving like a traditional model, it's just going back to really the heart of medicine. When I was at my previous practice, which I just loved and adored all the physicians I worked with, there was a very strong limitation on the amount of time that was allotted for patient care. And so, if you got 15 minutes with a patient, that was actually probably pushing what the amount of time that you were allotted from an insurance reimbursement standpoint. And so therefore, you could only cover one thing per visit because insurance would only reimburse for one thing per visit. So if you had 3 problems, if you needed just like a regular annual exam and a pap smear, you were feeling more anxious and whatever, maybe your big toe hurts, it literally didn't matter what it was, then you could really only talk about one of those, and then you'd have to come back. And then you have to come back for the other one. And we really never got anywhere. You can't take care of people in 15 minutes.
Right.
Yeah, I was, as you were talking about that, thinking about my times as, at least when I was having my children, like pregnancy, I was going in for appointments, and I loved my doctor, but I always felt rushed, I didn't have a lot of time to really express, and she listened well, but it was kind of like, okay, well, we're going to just check the boxes. And then I felt like I was just checking the boxes, and then I didn't always leave with like my questions answered. I felt like, how long do you usually spend with patients now that you're in this practice or this model of healthcare? What does that look like now?
So my patients get really whatever amount of time they need. Our appointments are set up in hour-long blocks. And so for like an initial patient appointment, if you were coming in to see me, we would sit down in my office, very similar to this, actually. You get to keep all your clothes on. And, we would talk. We would kind of take the deep dive into all the things that are going on. So much of health is not just, the boxes are very important. Your immunizations are important. Your pap smear and your mammogram, those are very important. But, the stress that you're dealing with every day, the fact that you have 3 kids and travel a lot, and that, maybe that gives you, just more challenges in finding time to exercise or eat healthy, then how is it that those are affecting your health? And then we make recommendations on like maybe things that we can do, especially from a lifestyle standpoint, that affect long-term chronic conditions like heart disease or blood pressure, hyperlipidemia, lots of things. And then from there, we get some labs and we kind of just keep going. We follow up about every, 6 weeks to 3 months, kind of depending on what the patient needs. And it works.
Yeah. So when I was living in Sioux Falls, I was actually a patient of yours. I came and saw you, and I remember that.
Cannot confirm nor deny that.
I brought it up. So just to set the record straight. But I just remember feeling so different about, I left and I was like, that's the first time I actually felt heard or understood. And so I think that's really amazing. But before we get more into that, can you give a little more background on Britt Haus specifically, how long you were practicing before you decided to open Britt Haus, and really what services that you offer to your patients now?
So the kind of the backstory in Britt Haus is my husband is a trauma and critical care surgeon. We met the very first day of orientation of med school. So we've kind of just grown up through life and medicine together. And he did his trauma fellowship in Orlando, which is kind of how we landed there. I'm originally from Alabama. And so when I got back to the South in the sunshine, I was like, oh my God, I am never leaving again. And he grew up in Rapid. And so we would always come back to Sioux Falls because that's where all of our family is on his side now. And so we were up here 3-4 times a year. and always loved it. Always thought it would be really amazing to have, the kids be able to grow up. We have 2 kids, grow up with all their cousins. And so we have 11 nieces and nephews between the ages of 12 and 7.
Oh, wow.
And so it is chaos all the time, but it is
They all live
so much fun. Yep. We're all within like a 10-minute
That's
like
amazing.
travel time of each other.
So fun.
And so we like filled 2 entire pews at church, which is just,
That's amazing.
it's so fun. And so we really wanted that for our kids. COVID, I think, was obviously very challenging for the world, but was so good for us because it allowed us to take a step back from our schedules, our call schedules, and really spend time with each other. And we realized we never see each other.
Yeah.
We never see our kids. And we really like each other. We really like our kids. And so we just, we didn't want to do it anymore. And so we decided we weren't going to.
Yeah.
So we moved. And in doing that, it allowed me the space to really evaluate the way that I wanted to care for my patients. And, if you are providing good care, if you are good, then you're also good for the people that you care about, which is almost kind of a mantra of my practice. Moms, are the center of their household. And so if you're good, then your kids are good. Your relationship is good. But if you're, you're falling apart, then the wheels are going to come off way faster than if they're not. And so I realized that I had been really sacrificing myself. I saw like 37 patients a day. I also firmly believed that if you ordered labs or an ultrasound or whatever it was, that your patient should hear your voice with the results, not just a message from a nurse or something like that. Not that they're not capable, but just you ordered it. Your patient wants to know that you looked at it. And it might be like a 20-second conversation, but I think there's that trust of reassurance. And so I just killed myself because I never took lunch and I operated every day. It was on call at a week at a time. And I was really, really tired. And I decided I couldn't go back.
Yeah.
And I interviewed at hospitals, and just, it was kind of one of those things is like, it's easy. It's not easy to leave, but it's also really hard to go back to the same, situation you left.
Right.
And so I decided I was going to do it different.
Yeah. And that's when you opened Britt Haus, is when you moved here.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Did you start off as it was just you and hired some nurses, or? Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Grown since then.
So the nice thing about a direct patient care practice is that we get to run really lean. In my practice in Florida, we had 4 different people hired to do all the billing and coding for insurance, and then to argue with insurance when they didn't want to cover whatever it is because you talked about your big toe at the time of your pap smear type of thing.
Right.
And so, so this saves overhead costs for us, which allows us to translate savings to patients. And so I think one of the misnomers of DPC is that it's just kind of concierge, like fluff. You're like, oh, well, I have insurance, so I don't really need that. And, insurance is very important. Emergency care is based on an insurance model and is therefore, even in a high deductible plan, mostly necessary. But a lot of people can't afford that. And so, our model is great because you can pay a very small amount monthly, kind of like a gym membership. And then, all my patients get my cell phone number. So you can text me, you can call me, you can email me.
That's great.
We're just kind of there for you.
An actual relationship. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so great. So let's talk about perimenopause. I think for the most part, most of the audience probably doesn't even know what that was. And I would say that I didn't even really know what that was not too long ago. So can you just explain like what it is, when you typically see that start to develop in your life?
So So perimenopause is the time surrounding menopause, which is defined as 12 months without a menstrual cycle. And so perimenopause can be the symptoms that occur anywhere between 6, 8, even 10 years before menopause actually happens.
Wow.
Interesting.
That's a lot longer, like prior to menopause than I thought.
Yeah,
Can go back
it's
as far as
very
10 years.
genetic. So, whatever your mom went through, your grandmother went through, your sisters go through, will, probably fall along that same lines. But, depending on your family communication, you may not know that. Somebody might have had surgery. So,
Yeah.
So if you start to experience symptoms of perimenopause, does that mean like, oh, it's inevitable, I'm going to go through menopause soon, there's nothing I can do about it? Or what do you suggest for patients that are starting to experience those symptoms? Are there things that they can do? Maybe it's a change of lifestyle, diet, whatever that might be, to help them kind of feel more like themselves? Or tell me a little bit about that, because that's news to me as well.
So that's a very big answer.
Yeah.
So some of the kind of typical symptoms that I think we hear about from menopause is like hot flashes and night sweats and things like that. The kind of less typical ones that, at least, even as a physician, I feel like I was surprised about, is really sleep disruption. That like nighttime waking around, like inevitably it's 3 a.m. and you wake up and you can't go back to sleep. Or just generalized fatigue. You're like, well, I didn't wake up last night. I slept good. Why am I still so tired? Emotional lability or mood changes, brain fog, kind of feeling like you're completely scattered. You're like, my favorite example is I love to cook, so I cook a lot. But if you're like looking at a recipe and somebody calls you on the phone, and then you need something from the pantry, so you go to the pantry and you're standing there, you're still on the phone, and you're like, I have no idea why I'm here. So you go back, you look at the recipe, and you're like, I still don't know what I need. So you have to like finish your phone call so you can look at the recipe, so you can go to the pantry, so you can continue on with your life.
That's good.
Yeah. And inevitably, women say that all the time. They're like, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
So kind of those ADD symptoms that you're like just completely scattered.
Right.
And so those are a lot of the ones that I feel like people tell me frequently that they're like, I just didn't even know.
Very interesting.
Why would, I'm sure there are instances, probably many, where women might be experiencing symptoms like that, and they go to their doctor and they might be told that it's nothing. Why would that be the case? Would it be that they're maybe too young? Just not the right symptoms that some doctors would associate that with perimenopause? Have you seen that before?
Yes, frequently. And sometimes too, it's just they're so non-specific sometimes. And so especially if you're in your late 30s and you have these symptoms, you feel like you're too early for menopause, your doctor probably also feels that way too. And so some of it is more ruling out other things that it can be, to be like, well, okay, maybe this is actually what's going on. Versus just kind of jumping to that conclusion as well. Fatigue is kind of a catch-all of things that can contribute to that. So the flip side of saying, yep, it definitely could be perimenopause, is also to make sure that it's not something else, which is, so checking labs is really important. But a lot of times menopause or that menopausal transition is not so much like the snapshot of where you are. Hormones are, they ebb and flow throughout the month naturally. And so the labs, capture a snapshot. They give you really good data, especially if you trend it, you can extrapolate if you know the physiology. But if not, then it's not that your hormones are gone or your hormones are there. It's that fluctuation between, yes, we have a lot of them. No, we don't have a lot of them. That the instability is what causes a lot of those symptoms.
So that's really important to understand. And like Kassidy said, if someone goes to a doctor, and not necessarily if they're dismissed, but if they walk away feeling that they're not really being taken seriously, or that their symptoms aren't that big of a deal, but they still feel off. Do you have any advice for women to better advocate for themselves in that setting?
Absolutely. So I think knowing what is important to you. So being a good doctor is not just about asking like what hurts or what the problem is, but like what's important to you. I don't feel like I've ever been a great sleeper. And so sleep to me is really important to me because I do not function well without it, which is funny being an OB-GYN and having 2 kids and, it's a chronic problem. But knowing what is going on, you may not have the answers. You may yourself not even know that this is like a perimenopausal thing. And so even just kind of tracking what's going on in your own body, like, yep, I didn't sleep good this night. It doesn't have to be like extensive. I didn't sleep good, super emotional, worked out, ate well. Nothing's changing, those type of things. And so just knowing what's going on with you is a really great tool to be able to bring to your physician to say, hey, these things are going on. These are even the things I've changed. Like I started working out more. I did some lifestyle stuff, still doesn't seem to be enough.
Right.
What's next?
Right.
Since we're kind of on the subject, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about women's cycles and like how they can expect to feel differently in each phase. I feel like we're not generally educated very much on like how you're going to feel differently from the beginning of your cycle towards the end of it. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So the menstrual cycle is a fluctuation just like anything else. In menopause, those fluctuations become much greater. And so it's that delta, it's the change that really causes those issues. So the younger you are, then the less those fluctuations will typically happen. So day 1 of your period is considered the first day of your cycle. And usually around week 2, week 3, your hormones start to go up. And that's when you feel like really your best. You have your best energy. You probably feel like the most emotionally stable. Maybe, kind of like feel on top of your game. Your confidence is up. And then the week before your cycle, so that week 4 period, is when progesterone really starts to go down. And that is what causes a lot of the emotional side effects. Bloating is a big one. That can in of itself can cause just like slower GI tracts, which makes you not really want to eat as much. Maybe you don't feel as good. You don't want to work out as much. And then they kind of just is a vicious cycle of that until you have your period. And then you're like, oh, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, that's okay again.
It's not that horrible.
But it's so important to know that. I think just when you're aware of how you're like, oh, I'm not crazy. I'm just like, I'm not super emotional. It's just, that's the point I'm at in my cycle right now. I think it just helps you kind of feel at peace more, not wondering what is wrong with me,
Absolutely. And same with menopause. Like if you realize you're like, okay, and having somebody that can objectively walk you through why you're feeling what you're feeling, then, and be like, yes, this is very normal. Like menopause is like death and taxes. It comes for us all.
Yeah.
There is not a single female in the world who will get away with not having to go through it.
Yeah.
And so really just knowing what it is that is going on at the timing that you need it. And then, I think early intervention is wildly helpful. If you're steering a boat and you are having to course correct just a little bit to get back on track is very different situation than if you're like way off over here and then trying to get back.
Yeah, that's...
So does early intervention mean getting your hormones tested and making lifestyle changes from there, or what?
Yes.
Okay. So,
or even just not necessarily from the labs, but even like early on, I think even in your early 30s is a great time to just know, like, again, labs are a snapshot, but the trend is really where you can kind of identify more things than just that like one point in time. But if you get them done in your early 30s and you're like, okay, cool, everything looks normal, I'm not really having symptoms, perfect. So that when you're 37, 38 and now you're not really sleeping that well, your kids are sleeping, but why are you not sleeping? You feel more stressed, but nothing has changed. You get some labs and you're the numbers are starting to change, then you're like, oh, okay, maybe this is it. Right.
So what about for someone in their 20s that still kind of is able to understand their cycle, their body, and how they feel, and they still just feel a little bit off? Do you still recommend hormone testing at that point? For me specifically, I've felt like that, but I also had a baby in February, so I know that shifts with a lot of things, but I'm creeping up on a year postpartum. And so at what point would it make sense, if you still kind of feel off, at what point does it make sense to maybe get your hormones tested to just kind of stay in tune with what's going on?
I mean, I think it's relatively low cost.
Okay.
So I mean, it never hurts. More data never hurts.
Yeah.
So it might not tell you something now, but maybe it will tell you something in the retrospect.
And then, so could any woman just go to their OB and say, I want a hormone lab, or where would you recommend starting?
So yes, you can always go to your doctor and request it. But there's also labs, I think both at Sanford and Avera in town, that you can go and just get a cash pay. You don't need a doctor's order to do it.
Okay.
Now you may need a doctor to interpret the information for you, but to get the lab drawn itself, I want to say is maybe $30.
Oh wow.
Ish.
Yeah. Really.
So
that's good to know.
Very low cost then when it comes into, or when it relates to understanding what's going on.
Yeah. From your perspective as a physician, what is a good or a healthy doctor-patient relationship?
I think all relationships are based on trust, and that the only way that you get to trust somebody is to spend time with them.
Yeah.
And so to have somebody who will listen to you, who will, validate your feelings, and as well as, kind of walk through it with you. If you have, these feelings and we've looked at it and maybe we didn't come up with anything, but instead of, kind of just dismissing and be like, well, everything looks normal. Peace and blessings. Then, it was like, well, okay, so your labs didn't show anything awful, which is great, but let's try some of these things. Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
Is that possible in the conventional medical setting? Like you said, you had that 50 prior to opening Britt Haus, you kind of have that 15-minute turnaround. So is that a red flag that should normal practitioners in a conventional medical setting be able to make you feel understood and spend that time with you? Or what can women expect, whether, if they should know that, hey, maybe this isn't the right provider for me personally, or this is just kind of how it works? What would you recommend? Or what would you recommend?
I don't think that any doctor went into medicine to be like, okay, well, now our 15 minutes is up.
Right.
And that really, I have never met someone who was like, man, I can't wait to do more computer work or check more boxes. But the system itself, I think, is very difficult. And so, the way everybody is an individual, whether you're a patient or a physician. And so I think finding somebody that you really resonate with is probably the most important part. And then as a patient, understanding that this is the system that they are working in. And so this is the structure they have to help you. And it might require a little bit more work depending on, how complex or complicated it is too. If it's something real simple, then I definitely think you can get it done in that model.
Right.
If not, then it will probably take either more visits or more time.
Mm-hmm.
For women that feel intimidated by doctor appointments, medical settings, what do you recommend to them to show up and feel confident and ready to, what no matter what their fears are, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, medical anxiety is a real thing. And so I think coming prepared, like with what you're feeling, as well as, just a knowledge that again, every other woman is going to go through this as well. Like you're not alone. Mm-hmm. And so to have that kind of piece about it, that you may not have any answers, but at least you have the beginnings of the questions. Yeah. And that's what the doctors are there for, is to help work through the answers.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So you practice medicine, and Britt Haus, your practice is largely outside of the health insurance model. Can you give us a little bit more of an understanding about why you chose that model and how that works for you?
So without the insurance piece, they don't get to tell me how much time I can spend with patients. Mm-hmm. They don't dictate how many problems that we can tackle at one time, or procedures that can be done at one time. My practice size is very small by design. And that allows me to really know, again, you talk about knowing your patients. Like, I know my patients. I know the vacations they took. I know the struggles that, health struggles that their kids have. I know that, the businesses they're planning. And I think if you listen to the patient long enough, they will tell you what is going on. Mm-hmm. But again, you have to have the time. Right. And I think that's what a DPC practice really allows me to do, because I don't have to answer to anybody else.
Right. Yeah. Do you find that, like, do women not, is cost ever an issue, or do you find that really, like, when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter, like, because they're getting the time and they're getting their questions answered and it's an actual relationship, is that worth it? Like, the cost doesn't matter?
I think for people who are only seeking like very episodic care, like, who don't really like doctors, don't want to go to a doctor. I don't really like going to the doctor either, so I understand that. That it's probably not a good model for them. But for somebody who is more complicated, they have more questions, they want that relationship, then it's definitely worth it. Mm-hmm. The cost is extremely comparable to copays. And then you don't have the, insurance gymnastics of like, oh, well, they said they were going to cover that, but now they're not. And now there's these surprise bills, because insurance can change what they're going to cover for up to 7 years.
Oh, wow.
7 years?
That's
7
crazy.
years after it has been submitted.
Oh, my goodness.
And so it might be something that you thought, we are personally going through this with some medical bills for my son that were like 18 months ago, or like we're not even at that same facility anymore. And you're like, what's going on with this? Wow. And then so it's just, you just never know. Whereas with a DPC practice, like all of our cost fees are like on our website. Like you could go there right now and see exactly what everything is going to be.
Yeah.
Well, and from my perspective, it sounds like the patient is really the one who benefits from this type of practice. It's definitely an investment in your health, but you get the time spent with your doctor. You get the follow-up with your doctor, like you said. It's really overall, like, how can we help you feel better as a complete whole person instead of let's fix this one problem and not really look at the root cause. So I think that's...
And two, I think one of the benefits of, so with insurance-based model, the only way that the facility or the doctor has to be able to bill is if you come to the office. With my practice, like you have an umbrella fee. You could come and see me every single day. You could call me every single day. It's all covered. And so if, for the most part, again, because I know you, if you get a respiratory infection on Friday afternoon and you're like, well, shoot, we're going out of town tomorrow. I need to pack. I got the kids to do, you know, you have like this whole checkbox of things to do. You're like, how am I going to, you know, I'll be fine. I'll suck it up. Whereas with like our model, you shoot me a text, be like, hey, this is going on. I've tried to fight it off for the week. Still not better. We're leaving tomorrow. What do you think? And so ask you a couple questions, see what's going on. And then if appropriate, you know, we'll send in an antibiotic and you don't have to physically come in and see me.
Yeah. And
if you're not feeling better, guess who has my cell phone number?
Yeah.
You're going to call me on Monday. If you're like, you know what, I am not better. So
full service.
Yeah. And we'll get you in.
That's amazing. Really care about the person as an individual, which is not rare. It's not rare, but it's just, I think a lot of people don't have that experience. So I think that's amazing.
I think a lot of people don't really know that exists either. Like that type of model exists. It's in Sioux Falls, maybe more people do, but you get outside those in South Dakota specifically, and probably other states, there's areas of that, but not really realizing that kind of healthcare is accessible, I think.
Definitely. It's definitely more prominent on the coast, and I feel like it's slowly starting to work itself into the center of the country. I was the second DPC in the state. There is another one out in Rapid, a family medicine group out there that seemed really great. And I am the only one still in Sioux Falls. Okay. So I'm hoping that we get some more and can really, you know, take care of people the way they need to be taken care of.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Are there any misconceptions that people have when it comes to non-health insurance care?
I would say that it's expensive or it's fluffy or that you're like, well, I already have insurance, so why do I need you? And I think those are all, you know, valid questions, but I would definitely venture to say that your investment is much greater than your cost. You know, I think that if we start asking what is it worth, you know, health is wealth. Yeah. And so you can do a lot of things, but prevention is much, much easier than intervention. Yeah. And so doing those type of things matters. And then, you know, insurance is important, especially if you end up in the ICU with my husband. Like you want the insurance, but just like, you know, car insurance isn't going to change the windshield wipers or put gas in your car. Yeah. Right. You know, insurance doesn't really do a whole lot for just the regular maintenance of life.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
What we should want as patients is to find the core root of why it's happening, not consistently go in and, you know, get the medication which is needed at the time and then wait for it to happen again. We should want to get to the core root of why does this happen? How can I fix it so that we can put an end to it?
Absolutely. And I joke that I'm a unicorn because I'm a traditionally Western trained physician. You know, I have done lots of pelvic reconstructive surgeries. I delivered, 1,000 babies. I still write prescription medications. There is a time and a place for all those things, but definitely, as a board certified lifestyle medicine physician as well, not just OB-GYN, you really get that basis of how those interventions can can make long-term impacts.
So to kind of tie it all together, if someone out there is listening to this episode and they're struggling with symptoms, they feel off, but they're a little overwhelmed and they're just really not sure where to start, what's the first step that you would give them advice on where to start?
So I would write down what it is that you're struggling with. And then I would make an appointment with your physician. If they wanted to come and see me, we actually offer a free 15-minute discovery call through, you can go to our website, and there's like a page on the back that you can set it up, and you can sit down and talk to me and see if it's going to be, a good fit for your needs. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't, and that's okay. But to get the ball rolling, to not be afraid that, well, I'm going to go in and they're just not going to listen to me. And I would tell you that if they're not listening, then find somebody else. And if they don't listen, find somebody else. Like it's not that these are not valid concerns or issues. Like I hear them all the time.
Yeah.
So just to know they're not alone.
Yeah. What's something that you wish every woman knew about her body that no one's telling her?
That your feelings and your symptoms are your body trying to talk to you.
That's really good.
And I will say that even though I am dual board certified and all the things, that it's still difficult for me, even as, taking care of myself from a life standpoint as well as, a hormonal standpoint. And none of us are perfect. We're all on the journey together. And so, but if you slow down enough to listen, your body will tell you what's going on and what you need.
Yeah, that's really great. If you could change one thing about how women experience healthcare today, what would that be?
Time. Just time. I think it's the most elusive commodity that we have, any of us have. And so to be able to have the time to go to the doctor, to have the relationship, to be able to invest that, the return is just, astronomical. You can't put a price on it.
Yeah.
Where can our listeners go to learn more about you and keep up with you and what the work you're doing?
So our website, Britt Haus, BRITTHAUS.com is a great place to go. We're on social media at Britt Haus DPC, and I do a lot of public speaking and education just because it's a passion project of mine to make sure that people know that they about their hormones, and so I'm always around.
Love that.
That's great. Well, Dr. Skattum, thank you so much for coming and willing to be on our podcast. I know it was super validating and informative for me, so I know a lot of other women are going to feel the same, and I just appreciate you being willing to have a conversation with us.
Yeah, I think so many women are going to be learn a lot today, so thank you for the time.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed today's podcast. If you did, please be sure to leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen. If you are interested in following along with Dr. Skattum's journey, we will have her information in the show notes and on our Instagram, Threads of Wellth. See you next time.